He has called in. And we've got Bill and Scott, and I know they're ready. The administrator Graham's logged on. Hi, Scott. Cancel. All right. Kathy, are you ready to get going?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. Well then, it being 6 o'clock Yelm Prairie time, we will go ahead and call the meeting of the Yelm City Council study session to order on October 5th, 2021. And Kathy Littemeyer, our city clerk, will take the role by virtue of seeing who's in attendance, in full attendance on our Zoom meeting. This is a study session, and so we don't actually have order of business tonight. We'll just roll through our agenda, and then if the council has any other additional items they'd like to discuss, they can bring that up during council member initiatives. But we will start right off with Farmers Market, and I'd like to welcome Jeevan Sakaran, and I think that's a fair representation of that name.
It sure is.
And John, he's on the board along with Heidi Smith, and then John Jameson is our market manager, and they're here tonight to give us sort of a overview debrief of how the farmers market went this season. All yours.
Let's get to share the screen.
I think EJ, you went every single week, didn't you?
I missed one.
No, I missed one as well, but otherwise, it was a great market year, I thought.
Oh, me too.
Hey, we're Bounty for Families, and we're a local nonprofit, and we're the nonprofit in charge of the Yelm Farmers Market. First thing I want to do is thanks for our in-kind and cash sponsors. This market wouldn't be here without the city, so we really appreciate your support. And Studio 7 and 3, Crowlaw, and Blue Waters for always being a cash sponsor. Just so you guys know, this data is all up on the website. So if you ever need it again, it's all there under 2021 financials. And just to give you an overview is that the Yelm Farmers Market was started by the Yelm Food Cooperative in the past. And then in 2017, we split the nonprofit into its own entity called Bounty for Families. And you'll see in this chart, I'm just giving you a history lesson of kind of where we were with our cash flow when we moved to City Park and how that really changed everything. And basically where we're sitting right now, where we were to get a COVID relief fund last year, but we got the money applied this year. And as you can see, in the past, we had expenses going up and revenues not really changing. And so what I really like to see is that after this move to the city park, we have nice, consistent revenue, right? Consistent expenses, which is what I really like to see. And through that process, we've reduced our reliance on donations and sponsors. You can see in 2015, 2016, we're heavily reliant on going out there and trying to get money from individual donors and businesses, where we don't need to do that as much anymore. To look at how 2021 is going, we're actually doing really well. We're pretty much doing how we were doing in 2020 and 2019. We're not quite up to the 2019, but we're doing really well, especially considering we started this year with some restrictions and then moving from last year with the full restrictions that we had. We do love the return of the events. That was a really big help. We've learned about the introduction of the event hangover, which is we have these massive events in town, and then the next week nobody shows up. And our vendors have figured that out as well, and we try to be flexible with them. We have the return of the POP program. Because of COVID, we weren't really pushing that in the beginning, but we were slow rolling it out. But we're really glad to have that program because we really think it's the future. And then also another program of Bounty for Families, we were able to get the community garden in this year, which we hope to be an integral part of the POP program in the future. This is just our Yelm Farmers Market vendor breakdown. This is basically our sales per week. Obviously, we're not done with the season. And even in the previous graph, it might look like we're doing a little less than last year, but we still have 5 weeks to go. So that data will get in there. And we do believe we're going to exceed last year's total. One of the things that we found really hard to get together this year is the prepared food. We still run into the problem where our attendance numbers are really low in comparison to somebody who wants to sell a prepared food. One of our best weeks, or one of our best years, is like when we did have masonry in the kitchen in the community center. So we always had a prepared food option unless they couldn't make it. And so I think that's a big difference in this year's numbers. We do have breakout sales on all of our event weekends, and obviously the significant reduction on the weeks following. And that's really shown in this list. You can see compared to previous years, the blue is our revenue for this year. Red is the 2019. So you can see how we have those breakout events, and sometimes there was events that didn't exist before. But the following week, we fall short of our previous year numbers. And this is just an example of our Washington State Farmers Market Association Roots Guideline Check. And what this does is it actually gives us an idea of what of our percentages are of farmers and processors, artisans and resellers. And so we always like that yellow line to be higher than any other line in this chart. Lately, it's been a little bit, the participation of vendors have been varied week to week. And John can answer any questions about that we're having. We do like that we were able to return the POP program after a year of not having it. We had to hire a new POP manager mid-season, but we're really excited about her. We've now ensured that there's a POP activity every week where the kids are really happy about. We really think that in 2022, we're going to be able to increase the integration with the Yelm Community Education Garden. Since it's right there in the park, it makes sense. Increasing the promotion of the POP program in schools to 2015 levels. When we started this program, we were able to distribute way over what we budgeted for in POP tokens, like over the $3,000 mark. Now we're in the $600, $900 given out, and we really want to increase that numbers. And I think in those previous years, we had a POP manager that would be going out into middle schools, giving talks, those kind of things. And I think we can get there. And I think for a town the size of Yelm, programs like this is what makes the difference to run a market when you're below the 18,000, 20,000 population mark that farmers markets usually thrive in. And then also with the addition of the Yelm Community Garden, we're excited about that. We have a new hired Yelm Community Garden manager who's awesome. They've started to integrate POP activities, and they've already hosted several community gardens educational events at the garden itself. Just want to list out some reasons for our success. Like I showed in that first slide, sponsorship by the city of Yelm, allowing the use of the Yelm Community Center consistently for 4 years, centrally located. It eliminates significant setup time and resources for compliance compared to our Nisqually location in the past. The success of the market is in no small part due to John Jameson. He's been with the market for 4 years now. An experienced market manager who stays year after year is a huge bonus for us. And right-sizing our compensation plan. So, John and Bounty for Families have an agreement to do a percentage-based system, which eliminates the guesswork and allows for growth. The better the market does, the better John does. And we never have to be afraid that we're going to be out of cash at any time because we guessed wrong. Increased number of events held collaboratively within the park. combined marketing, increase attendance, all the reason why everybody loves those events. It helps the market. We believe that our market helps the events, and those have been really great for us. And I think they're going to be the future. Any questions? And I might have went fast, but that's kind of what I do.
I just want to say thanks. It was a great presentation, really professionally done, and I hope this partnership continues for a lot longer.
Thank you.
Question.
Oh, Terry, go ahead.
Yeah, great presentation, Jeevan and Heidi. I was going to report on this at the next city council meeting, but maybe you'd like to just yourself tell the group about the new partnership that you have, because I don't think they know about it yet.
Oh, are you talking about the Learners Without Limits
Yes,
program?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, we're super excited about that. This was something that a fellow board member, Drew Collar, that everybody I'm sure knows about, came to us with, and we looked at it, and then, you know, a couple weeks later, we were just like, this is perfect for what we're doing, for our nonprofit to be a financial fiscal partner for this new program. It really cuts a lot of red tape from getting help to middle school, high school students, any students in Yelm Community Schools that really need help now. And what Yelm Community Schools has done is they've hired staff within the schools to be able to identify kids with needs like you know, clothing, with food. And what we're able to do is provide fiscal sponsorship, provide a bank account, so we can just, you know, load an account with money that allows them to act quickly. You know, there's a lot of great programs in the community that help schools, but it's all of a one-time thing. So there's a program to help, like, you know, backpacks for kids, and school backpacks and food drives and those kind of things. But they're events that the problem has to be identified, then the community partner has to be found, they have to go to their board, and then they have to run this event, and then either raise the money or do the program, or give out the food, those kind of things. And that takes a long time. My dream for this, and I know it's Drew, is that it's like, we can just load this bank account with donors, with programs, with grant money. You know, the farmers market's doing really well, and we think we can just go after grant money. Drew has told us that there's money sitting on the table, and the only thing they needed was a fiscal sponsor, that there's places that will donate money into this program. They just needed a nonprofit partner. So we're just glad to be that nonprofit partner. But I mean, what I'm super excited about is that when I say the message, it's like, it's the quickest way your dollars can get to kids that I've ever seen. And I think it's going to be a great program.
So Jeevan or Heidi or even John, could you sort of share with us the kind of reaction that you're getting from the typical attendee at the farmers market? How do they feel about their community market and the venue, that sort of thing?
I'd be happy to answer this one. I think we've had probably like one of the best reactions this year that I've had in the past 4 years. I think a lot of people didn't even know we really existed for a lot of the people of the community, but it's just, people are so happy to be outdoors again and be socializing and being around people, and seeing the Power of Produce program acting again, and all the new vendors, because our great reputation that we're having, we're getting all of these vendors from all over different counties are wanting to come to us, you know, or just in our county that we're going to other markets. So it's really cool to see all these people, seeing all these really awesome vendors that have never been here before. And I think the reaction is super positive, and a lot of people are becoming consistent members that are coming here every Saturday, you know, on their own or with their kids, families, friends. Or, you know, we're having family members show up that say, oh, my brother told me about this, my sister told me about this. And it's really awesome to feel that, you know, everyone's really enjoying it. So I think it's a really positive reaction. Awesome reaction.
Very good. And even though we don't need the reinforcement all that much, Heidi or Jeevan, if you could just talk about why the board got involved in the farmers market, and how farmers markets fit into your vision for our community? Heidi, you're muted. I know.
Sorry about that. Okay, so Bounty for Families mission is cultivating a healthy community. And we've shifted our focus a tiny bit with this whole new program with the Yelm Community Schools. But a lot of our focus goes into providing access to healthy and nutritious food, to providing education and resources for the community in a way that's empowering for them to grow their own food or grow food security. And so that's really kind of the through line with all of our programs. The farmers market is an essential piece of that, but beyond just kind of making those things happen for the community, it also is a real gathering place. And last year, I think, was a big challenge for everybody, obviously, and not being able to gather as much as we're all used to. But I think that's part of what John's seeing is people are just so happy to be able to get together again to a larger extent anyway than we have in the past year. And the market just provides a great opportunity for that. Those are the big things. I think also we serve as a connecting point, like the market, as Jeevan and John have mentioned, has been collaborating with other community events this year, and it just kind of grows a synergy and a community feeling that I think is really cool. Did I miss anything? Jeevan or John?
That was wonderful. Jeevan?
Oh, I would just like to say that it's like, from the roots of starting out with the co-op, part of it was connecting that through line between farmers who aren't farmers yet, or craftsmen who aren't craftsmen yet, that they have a place to go and start out. And the farmers market's a great bridge between, hey, I want to try this thing and I want to see if it's a good fit for me, and this is what I want to do with the rest of my life, or this is my hobby and I want to share it. And it's a place they can start retailing their produce, their wares, their things, and then from there jump on to other things like getting their products into stores. We do like it to be a stepping ground, but also to encourage more farmers.
Wow. Well, thank you very much, all three of you, for coming out. Thanks for another great year at the market. Jeevan, if you'd stop sharing now. I do want a picture of that carnivorous plant, though, at some point. That was really great and a great addition to our community this summer. So thanks again. And now I see that we have Phil Elliott from WashDOT and Scott Sawyer from SCJ Alliance. And as the council had requested, they're going to give you a little bit more background on the modeling that that brought them to the configuration of the 510 alternate route and terminating on 507 out by Walmart. Jeevan, are you able to stop that share? Go down to the bottom where it says share screen, or perhaps Kathy, you could disable the sharing. That would pop it. There you go. And now Bill and Scott, you could share your presentation.
Great, thanks. Scott, are you going to share the file?
That's my plan.
There we go. Perfect. You're in
Okay, is
presentation.
that working? Are you guys? Sometimes I don't understand how PowerPoint reacts to Zoom. So are you guys seeing the presentation?
Yes, you're in presentation mode. Looks good.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. So as you mentioned, that we're here to talk about the work specifically in the road design and some of the channelization near Walmart. So the agenda for tonight, or so Billy, did you want to start and kind of walk us through this part? Sorry, I jumped in.
No problem. Yeah, so just following up from my opportunity to meet with you back on September 7th to provide an overview and status update on the project. We ended up with a few questions, particularly about the access down at the east or the Walmart end of the proposed Yelm Loop, and particularly left turn movements down that area, and also about the intended speed limit along the Yelm Loop once built. So we're following up with more detailed information tonight as requested. Scott Sawyer leads our design team. Scott Sawyer with Sheikh Harjul Alliance. And Scott's going to go through some of the technical backup for those aspects of the project.
Okay, so just a little bit of context. This is a repeat from last time, but just so we're all starting on the same page. Overview of the projects. Back in like 2009, the first piece of the Yelm Loop corridor was constructed. So the Yelm Loop as an idea has been around for a long time, prior to 2000. So it's been around for a long time. And the idea is to provide a roadway, arterial, that runs along the north side and the east side of town, principally to take regional traffic out of the heart of downtown Yelm, so that people who are traveling in downtown want to be there, they want to shop there, they want to spend dollars there, and help to move the regional traffic or the commute traffic that's passed through out of the commercial core, so it's not so congested with people who aren't interested in being there. So that's the intent of the Yelm Loop. There was a period in 2009 where there was right-of-way funds available, and much of the right-of-way in the corridor was purchased. At the time, there was money left over in the project budget to go ahead and build a piece of it. So the piece for Mud Run Road down to Collins Road was constructed back in 2009. And now we're back to finish it out. And so we're actively working on the design of the phase 2 piece that will run from Collins and then connect down into 507 near Walmart. The project has about 5 intersections that we're going to be constructing along the way. Collins in the upper left is also a stop control intersection, but that's really sort of operating now as a T intersection, and just the east leg of that is barricaded off. We're going to be building 3 different roundabouts, one at Wilkeson, one at 103rd, and then one at the connection into 507. And then there's 2 spots where we'll have stop control intersections on the minor leg, and that's at Roten and then also at Flume. The other thing I'll point out is at Flume, we are putting in what's called the rapid rectangular flashing beacons. I'm sure you've seen examples of this in different places, but they're a pedestrian actuated sign. They push a button, and then there's the rectangular strip that has LEDs that flash rapidly and let the cars know that peds are crossing. So we are putting the RFBs in at Flume Road to help the pedestrians navigate with the cars.
I've got a quick question real quick.
Yeah.
The intersection at Killian Road, is anything different going to be done there? Because this summer alone, I've counted 3 or 4 very extreme collisions that have happened. I don't know if it's a visibility issue. I don't know what the heck it is, but I mean, for one, we had a. I don't know if it's people turning off a Killian and they're not able to see properly or what, but I mean, constantly cars that are not just fender benders, but there's cars being flipped over, and not just cars. I mean, there was a dump truck on its side blocking the whole road, and those major accidents, I can think of 3 or 4 of them just over the couple months span of the summer. Has that been looked at? And if it has, is there any plans of some way to mitigate that?
It's not on my personal radar screen. I was not aware of the accident history over the last several months that you're talking about. So you're speaking about this existing intersection with the phase 1 piece that's open, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
At Killian Road. Like I said, I know of one was a pretty major collision where the one vehicle was thrown way off to the other side of the road, and the other one was flipped over.
Yeah,
And then the other one was actually, like I said, it was a dump truck, and the car. I don't know if that person survived. It looked pretty nasty, but the dump truck was on its side 50 feet away from the intersection.
okay. Now, when I say that I'm not aware of it, don't read too much into that, because DOT hired
I'm
me
sure.
to do just this piece. So I can let Bill maybe or Pat Hughes speak to that a little bit. Bill, do you want to?
Yeah, we'll appreciate that input. We'll make sure our traffic operations folks are aware of that. They probably are, but we'll make sure and pursue that with state patrol or local law enforcement, emergency services, to see if we can find out what that trend is. Does it seem like folks, are they running the stop sign off of Killian? Is that what's going on?
I don't know if it's that they're running the stop sign or if they're not able to properly see to the left, maybe. I mean, it happened to me today just coming through there. Someone pulled out right in front of me. Luckily, I slowed down, but I don't know what it is, but it's that intersection where all 3 or 4 of those major ones over the summer happened right there.
Okay, no, appreciate that input. I'll contact our traffic operations folks tomorrow, make sure they're aware and see what we can do to figure out what's going on there.
So Chief Stansel is watching tonight, and I'm sure he's taken the note down. If the chief would pull the accident reports from that intersection for the last year and then make that information available to Bill. But we'll see what happened when you put a roundabout there on the continuation. That might be a mitigating device as well. Terry, do you have a question?
I'm so excited. I just figured out the hand thing. The one at 103rd, is that 103rd and Yelm Avenue?
That it's 103rd in what is Yelm Loop or Walmart Boulevard. Is that what you're asking me?
Oh, no. No, I thought it was 103rd and Yelm Avenue.
Okay.
No, never mind. Wrong intersection. Sorry. Oh, but while I have the floor, one question: is it possible, or do you ever do wire infrastructure to have power, like maybe to have lights in the middle of a roundabout?
Yes. What, like a street light or like a decorative light, or what kind
Like
of light?
I'm thinking something on the ground decorative that could shine upwards and illuminate the roundabout at night.
The simple answer is yes, that can be done.
But was this planned for these roundabouts?
Right now, the plan that is an ongoing conversation between the DOT and the city. And so I don't want to say that that's a final decision, but like sort of the starting point of those discussions is that the roundabouts are going to be fairly simple in terms of their treatments in the center. Because of concerns of ongoing maintenance responsibilities or costs associated with that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else? The only other thing I wanted to point out on this slide is that the orange shading that is the majority of the corridor versus the blue shading down at the end at Walmart Boulevard. The difference between those two is the orange shading is indicating the length of the corridor that is limited access. What that means in plain English is that there's no driveways allowed to connect to the corridor. The blue area is an area that we call managed access, which means that driveways are allowed to connect to the roadway, but the DOT does it in a managed way so that the access points don't get out of control, basically, and everything's still working smoothly. So that is the difference between these two segments. And then the segment on Walmart Boulevard that is managed access, that's the subject of our, one of our main topics tonight, and is like, why are we using center medians through that stretch?
Scott,
Yes.
could you go over how that, you kind of intrigued me here when you said that it was managed access with DOT. Is DOT working with the city on applications then are there certain requirements to have a driveway on that, in that blue strip?
There's not requirements to have driveways, but yes, when a developer wants to put a driveway in, that is something that the DOT is the jurisdiction about allowing the driveways and the spacing of the driveways and the number of driveways and so forth. And so they would work in coordination with the city and during development review to make sure that DOT's managed access requirements were satisfied.
I'm just curious, would that be a lengthy process or would that be pretty streamlined or?
No, it's not a lengthy process. They may not like the answer, but it doesn't take a long time to get the answer.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so a little bit about center medians and what is the purpose of the center medians. And so the main point is that access management improves safety. And it's not complicated. It's just when we have less conflict points, we have less collisions. So the less times that we can cross traffic, the less chance we have of that traffic colliding with each other. And it doesn't get any more complicated than that. There are three main tools that are in the sort of managed access toolbox. One of them is center median treatments, and that's to cut down on the turns so that we have less conflict points. One is the spacing of access points, so putting driveways further apart from each other so that we get less friction in the corridor, and we also have less conflict points. And then turn lane channelization, so either at intersections or at driveways, putting in turn lanes so that we can get those turn movements out of the way of the through traffic, and again, trying to make things work more orderly. The last bullet I have on here is the safe access is good for business. It is a common, what I'll call a common misperception that access management is detrimental to business. When we start managing access and doing some of these tools that I listed, it's not uncommon for businesses to react and say, that's going to be bad. My customers aren't going to like this. There are studies, and I listed a couple of them here. And so some sites that you can go to and read about some stuff, and they would cite some other studies that you could look at if you are really interested in digging into the weeds. But there is information to say that better access is actually neutral or even better for business. So, and it makes some degree of common sense is that customers, if they're frustrated and there's near misses and it's kind of the Wild West in trying to get to a place of business, then that ends up sort of putting a bad taste in someone's mouth about what that experience is like, is to go to that store. So there is some balance between providing convenience and letting people make the moves that they want to make, but also keeping things orderly and safe so that people aren't feeling like they're having near misses or they're sort of dissuaded from going to a place of business because sometimes it's hard to get in there. So in this particular area, Walmart is a major traffic generator. I don't think that I'm sharing anything that you guys aren't already aware of in that regard. So the volume of traffic coming in and out of the driveways is a sizable volume relative to other businesses. And so because of that volume of traffic coming out and mixing with the through traffic and not putting in signals for that volume of traffic because of sort of the spacings of other controlled intersections, the best thing for us to do is to restrict those turn movements so that we take away the left turns. The left turns are the most dangerous turns. That's true at a traffic signal. That's true at a driveway. So those are the turns that create the most conflicts and the most collisions. So that's the purpose of the center medians, both on Walmart Boulevard that you see running through here. And then also the purpose of the center median along 507 with this driveway here. I am aware, or the design team is aware of sort of anecdotal information from the city about near misses with the existing driveway off of 507. Less so on this corridor because it's not really open to the Yelm Loop yet, but with the more traffic on Yelm Loop, that we would expect a similar situation for this driveway. And so that's the purpose of the center median through here, basically to manage the access so that we keep traffic moving well, we reduce crashes, and we have fewer vehicle conflicts. So give you some context of the thought that's gone into this, and that it wasn't just a snap decision. Back in 2006, when Walmart did their development, there was a condition of that development that said that they were supposed to close their southerly driveway when the Yelm Loop corridor came in. So coming back here for a second, they do have two driveways right now off Walmart Boulevard. One here that's more of like a, I don't want to say a truck entrance, but it's to the back side of the building. And then one here that comes right to the front face of the building. And this is the driveway that gets a lot more traffic. In the development conditions, it was judged that this was going to be too close to this controlled intersection, especially when it was going to be a traffic signal. And that it was a condition of the development that once the corridor went in, that this driveway would close because of its proximity to the major intersection. The other piece that we'll talk about is a couple of years ago, we did a value engineering study to specifically look at this area and sort of the block facing Walmart on Walmart Boulevard, and then also on 507. And so we got together with a group of subject matter experts, that some people that were involved in the project to provide context, and then most people who are independent of the project to be sort of a second set of eyes, and talked about the existing conditions and what the project was going to do, and what is the best thing for us to do in this area. The result of that was the recommendations to put the center medians in for both Walmart Boulevard and 507. Subsequent to that, we did do a traffic operations analysis to make sure that if we put the center medians in, then what would happen to the added traffic that goes into the roundabout. So when we're closing, or when we put these medians in, and now traffic is right in, right out from Walmart, somebody who's coming from the north and coming down the corridor, instead of being able to turn left into Walmart, they would come down and U-turn in the roundabout and come back and turn right. So we have a volume of traffic that normally would have turned left in here. And now we know that they want to come through the roundabout and U-turn, so that we reran the traffic operations for this roundabout, accounting for all the different turns that we're going to restrict from Walmart and putting them into the roundabout instead, to make sure that things work still. And the good news is that they still worked really well. So we went from the roundabout at that intersection operates very well. It operates at a level of service A, and this chart here to the right is the opening year forecast at level of service A. You can see there's like 7 seconds of delay without the center medians, and then we put the center medians in and put the extra traffic into the U-turns, and we go from 7 seconds of delay to 9 seconds of delay. So that's pretty good. Next slide is we'll talk about, it's the same kind of thing. I just blew this up so you can see it a little bit easier. But this is the operations for the roundabout without the turn restrictions. And then this is what the roundabout operations look like with the turn restrictions. So again, both of them are level service A, and we go from 7 seconds to 9 seconds. Any questions on this? So before I move over to talking about the corridor design speed, that was the slides that I had for the center medians. Any questions or comments or concerns about?
Go ahead, if you unmute, Tracy. There you go.
I'm curious, there's an agreement from, I think you said 2006 about, with Walmart in reference to their south entrance. If you can find that slide, I'd appreciate that. There you go. Walmart development conditions to close the south driveway on Walmart Boulevard, which would be the south, correct me if I'm wrong, would be the primary entrance off of Walmart Boulevard, not the secondary one that feeds into the tire department. Is that correct?
That's correct. The one that they were conditioned to close. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump the slide. The one that they were conditioned to close was the one that's right on the building frontage, correct? Not the one back by the tire center, correct?
Who gave them who is that conditioning by?
I don't know exactly. I did include sort of a screenshot here. This screenshot over here is the sort of the site plans that were approved by the city, and that this note right here, it's awfully fuzzy, so I apologize, but this says that essentially that this driveway is closed once the loop goes in.
Okay, and I understand everything that you're saying here. I believe the council all pretty much understands what you're saying, but I think one thing I'm not sure where you live, Scott, but all of us live here. And what you're talking about, closing that entrance, now you're talking about not just closing off the entrance into the parking lot of Walmart off of Walmart Boulevard. You're talking about closing off from both directions, the main entrance on Walmart Boulevard, I guess, assuming that we'd be leaving that back entrance open.
Let me clarify one thing. So the condition did talk about closing this driveway, period. We're not doing that today. We're leaving this driveway open, but we are putting in the center median and turning this into a right in, right out. So somebody who's coming from town and they're coming south on the corridor, they will come down and they'll U-turn in the roundabout and they'll turn right and then move right down the face of the building. So I agree with you. It's not cool to close this driveway because it is the driveway for Walmart off this road. And so because of that reason, we're not closing this driveway, but we are restricting the left turn so that someone would come down and U-turn and then turn right to get in.
I understand that. And like I said, I believe we're all clear on what you're proposing here, but I think that that we all live in this community and down this road on a regular basis, turning into Walmart. I'd say a good chunk of the traffic coming down that road is as we've discussed, is turning in there, which you're planning on sending into a roundabout that at certain times of day is going to be pretty active, because as you know by the traffic, the traffic studies that we've done, we got a lot of traffic coming through here.
Right.
I guess my question is what if we as a city say we don't like that, we don't want to do that, we want a turn lane right there? How much say do we have in this?
I'll let Bill speak to that. So that you definitely have some say. That's why we're here. In the studies that I mentioned previously, the VE study, the city staff was a member of that study, and everything that we've done so far in the design decisions that we've made has been in cooperation with city staff. So we haven't been working on our own. I understand what you're saying. The one thing I would ask you to consider is that because that there is traffic here. It's not a small amount of traffic. It's not huge, but it's not a small amount of traffic. But that small amount, that traffic that's happening is happening in both directions. So there's people coming south, there's people going north, and this road's going to have traffic on it. And so when someone comes down here, that they're going to try to turn left against traffic that has the right of way and doesn't have to stop. And so they have to wait until there's a gap. And then the trade-off is do they get impatient with that? Do they make poor decisions? Do they end up cutting somebody off? All those kind of things. And we're balancing that against if someone is stopped here and they're waiting to have to turn left across traffic, and measuring that against, okay, they come down here and then they're making a much more controlled movement through the roundabout and coming back and making a right turn that's completely unopposed in terms of conflict. And then our judgment is in doing this as a profession is that's the trade-off to make, is that if people are trying to move across to your left and it gets stuck and so they're having to wait, is that some people are going to do it anyways. They're just going to come down and use the roundabout because they know they can get through there and they don't have to wait. That's the thinking behind whether or not the center median goes in. So to answer your question specifically, well, I guess I'll let Bill answer the question, but the city has been involved in the conversations to date. And like that, when push comes to shove, like whose decision it is, I'll let Bill answer that question.
Want to weigh in?
Yeah, WashDOT is absolutely open to the city's interests and requests along this area. This is within the city limits. The city has a primary role in the implementation of the managed access criteria to the adjacent parcels within this segment. And city staff interact with that criteria regularly with permitting of developments. So we are absolutely open to the city's interests and recommendations on this. So on something like this, which would be a change to the project design, we'd want to get that from the city in writing as a formal request to change the design. And then we'd absolutely take that into consideration for potential changes.
The other thing that I would ask to keep in mind is that someday this property is going to develop. And then when that property develops, they're going to want a driveway on Walmart Boulevard. And then in the absence of a center median, that generally traffic engineering would say that we need to align these driveways to be across from each other. And then now Walmart, has got upwards of 150 cars that are turning left out of this driveway. and then now we've got people who want to turn left out of this development. And we're getting to a volume of turn movements that really would say that, hey, you need to consider putting a traffic signal in here or some kind of a controlled intersection.
Quick comment.
Our spacing of controlled intersections is way too tight. And so and that's where we start to get that the convenience is great, but when we get a volume of traffic that's trying to do different things, then we have to balance convenience against sort of orderly and safe movements of traffic.
Could I say something real quick?
Yes.
I see a hand from Councilmember DePino and then a comment from Councilmember Blair.
So thank you, Mayor. And I get the frustration. I know that a lot of our council members or my fellow council members are going to be talking about here, and I share a lot of them. Having grown up here, I think a lot of people remember what Venezuela Reservation used to be like, right in front of that Red One Casino, and how much traffic that was, and how backed up that was. And it was a nightmare, and those two roundabouts came in and bam, it just changed. And that traffic it wasn't there anymore. I think a lot of these roundabouts, and they're kind of a new school thing, last 10, 20 years or so, they started to pop up around here, and people are getting more used to it. But I think we're also seeing a lot of traffic being reduced because of them. And I'm not a traffic expert, it's not my forte, but I think these people are. These people are folks that's what they do day in and day out is traffic. They deal with our highways, our streets, and I think to an extent we got to listen to some of these experts when they talk about what's going to keep the flow moving, what's also going to be safe for our citizens too, so we don't get people that are injured and hurt. I think Bill at the last meeting talked about how if we need to, if it's just not working, we can take these out. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And I understand that's not the optimal scenario.
Sure.
Again, as described, we believe this is the best configuration for the context, for the setting. And I do want to touch on one thing before I move on. The recommendation for the raised median that Scott described came out of a value engineering study back in 2019, was not specific to Walmart. That was done with the context of the area between 103rd and 507 and the immediate stretch along 507 and the zoning in that area for development of all those parcels, which is undoubtedly going to occur. So as Scott described, it's not specific to what the Walmart access, it's the eventual development of all those parcels and the resulting competing traffic movements that we're going to have out there. So yeah, back to your question. If we build the raised median as described, and it's concluded that this is just not optimally functional for whatever reasons, again, that raised median is not a substantial physical feature. It would not be in any regard insurmountable to come in and with a modest amount of effort, retrofit a given area to allow access in the future. That's not precluded by this proposed design. I mean, I understand that's not the path we want to go down. We don't think that would be necessary. But it would be feasible.
Sure.
I would also add to that, it's hard to tell at this scale but the width of the center median is basically the width of a turn lane if we were to retrofit it, so we wouldn't have to widen the road.
Yeah, and my understanding is it's gonna move traffic a lot more than that stoplight is. Is that correct?
Yeah,
At
the roundabout definitely works better than a signal will.
So it's gonna move our traffic a little bit quicker. So hopefully that decreases it, and maybe I get it, you know, and it's not something that I really want to see, because I'm coming from the other side all the time. So I'll be taking that left, and it's a lot more convenient for me just to take that left. But with that increased traffic, I get it. It's gonna be more difficult to take that left turn, and maybe a little more dangerous. So I'm willing to try it out.
James, you've been patiently waiting. Do you still have a comment you'd like to make?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, because there was a lot of talk about the left turn, especially out of Walmart. I think we all, I understand exiting that road being right turn only and not crossing over the other side. Because at those times of day is when the traffic's going to be coming in that direction. But what I was talking about at the last meeting was still having that left turn, and even if that one driveway is too close to the roundabout, then at the further one back, but having it to where off of Walmart Road you can turn it left into the store and still have the exit right turn only. I understand the safety aspect, or the thought of if people are gonna get irritated and just end up going down either to the roundabout or whatever. But I mean, that we all do this every day. We all sit in turn lanes every day and wait for our turn to turn. So I don't understand why that was such a big deal being made. I don't think there's going to be that much traffic, especially in the middle of the day. If there's someone that lives in that back area that's heading to the store, it just seems silly to me to have them go all the way down to the roundabout, turn around, and then come back up, especially if the space is there to just put a turn lane in. I mean, like I said, we all drive every day and deal with turn lanes and wait our turn. And some people get impatient and go anyway. And if they cause an accident, they face the consequences for it. But I'll I don't understand why there's so much pushback to having a turn lane.
Well, I guess, I mean, I don't want to characterize this as like a slam dunk decision. So what we're expressing is our best professional judgment about what makes the most sense to do here. Like Bill talked about the context of the project and what's going on, and that this is our best professional judgment about what's the best thing to do here. And it's not like that, hey, if you leave a left turn that you're talking about, so you're talking about leaving this left turn open still, it's like the world will keep spinning. You know, it's not going to stop, and we're all going to fly off, you know, into outer space tomorrow. But that you talked about having to wait for the turn, and that's kind of the point, is that I can make this safer by putting the center median in, and are you really paying that much in terms of what it takes to drive down here and come back and turn in here versus wait for your turn to be able to turn because traffic's coming through? Is that big of a delta that it's worth taking having more accidents? And our judgment is it's not. And I'm open to different opinions. Like you can have, so people can have an opinion that I think the more accidents is worth the time that I might save once in a while on that left turn. Fair enough. So we can have differences of opinion. I'm just, our best judgment about what to do here is what we're showing.
I understand that. I just want to be, I wasn't saying that for like my own convenience of not spending the extra few seconds to go drive around the roundabout.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, the way I'm looking at it, it's putting an unnecessary number of additional vehicles into the roundabout when it's that may not need to go through that.
I get that. And then what I'm saying is that we did take a look at that, and the number of vehicles that we're adding into the roundabout is a non-issue. In terms of the total number of cars that are going in there and how the roundabout's operating and what happens when we put them in there or don't put them in there, it's a non-issue.
Okay.
Terry, do you have a question?
No, but I was just going to say, when I first looked at this, I thought, wow, that is really restrictive, particularly because it cuts off every single way that I personally go in and out of Walmart. But the more I look at it, the more I can totally acknowledge that the flow of traffic would be better. And I like that you are proactively looking at further development and how that would impact this road flow. So I think I like it.
Okay. Council, if you have, Bill and Scott, is that the end of your presentation?
That was the end of the median discussion. I do have a few more slides talking about the 40-mile-an-hour speed limit.
Okay, before you continue, I just want to ask Kathy or Lori, we did have a closed session scheduled for 7 p.m. to talk about negotiations. And I want to make sure with them that the participant from the law firm is going to be able to wait for us to finish our regular meeting, which looks like it's going to take us at least till 7:30, maybe 7:45 to finish.
I'll
Kathy,
contact
Lori?
John. I'll contact John and see if 7:30 works for him.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead, Scott.
Okay, the next thing that you asked us to talk about or come back to talk about was the speed limit for the corridor. The current design is based upon a 40-mile-an-hour design speed and a 40-mile-an-hour posted speed. And I'll get into what those two things mean and the significance of that. And the question that was posed to Bill, I believe, last time that you met was, would a 50-mile-an-hour posted speed limit be more appropriate? And so this slide is titled, "Why does corridor speed matter?" And really, when we're selecting a speed for a roadway, we're talking about finding balance between convenience, which is just how long does it take to travel that roadway, versus safety. And that's the balance that we're trying to strike. So convenience is pretty simple. Faster equals sooner. 40 miles an hour versus 50 miles an hour in the corridor translates into, like, at a best case scenario, 40 seconds. That's if, like, there's not very much traffic out there. You're getting through each of the intersections smoothly, and there's no, so it's basically like taking the length of the corridor times the 10 miles an hour difference that you're driving, and that's what it equates to. From a safety standpoint, the slower people are traveling, the less collisions that we get. There's plenty of studies that say that. And even more significant is that at lower speeds, the accidents that we do have are less severe. And so when we drop down in speeds like below 50 and we start to get like in the 40s and lower, then the amount of severity in terms of the crashes that we have is a lot less. So I did provide a citation here for an FHWA study that talks about going from a 50 mile an hour to a 40 mile an hour road equates roughly to like a 56% increase in collisions. So the faster the people are traveling on a roadway, the more accidents you're going to get, and the more severe those accidents are going to be. So the one thing that I did want to make sure people were clear on is that sort of this old school thought for highway engineering was that straighter, wider, flatter was more safe. What has happened over like roughly the last decade or two, more so in the last decade, is there's been a lot more recognition that straighter, wider, flatter roads aren't more safe, because straighter, flatter, wider roads, people drive faster on them. And we just talked about that the faster people are going, the more accidents they have, and the more severe the accidents are. And the reason there's more accidents with people driving fast is because the reaction times are sort of fixed. How fast people can react to a situation is fixed by their brains and how fast they can send a signal from their brain to their foot or to their hand. And so when you're traveling at a higher speed and you have a fixed reaction time, you're traveling a lot further distance wise than you are if you're traveling a slower speed. So the more current thinking in roadway design is that we want to intentionally design roadway features, and that's like the curvature in the road or the profile of the road, sort of the ups and downs, the humps of the road, and then also intersections and everything else, all the geometry of the road. We want to design it so that it's giving visual and physical cues to the driver all the time as to what speed we want them to drive. So it doesn't make sense for us to design a road for 60 miles an hour because we want to give some cushion to people being able to speed if someone is driving too fast, and then post it for 40 miles an hour. Because we're giving all these physical and visual cues to people to drive fast, but then we post it for a lower speed limit. So the more current thinking is that we want to find the appropriate speed for the context of a road, balancing convenience and safety, and then design that entire roadway with geometric features that are all giving a visual and physical cue to the driver to drive that speed, and then post a speed limit that is that same speed. So everything is working together. So that's what we've done in the corridor. We selected a 40-mile-an-hour design speed as that balance between convenience and safety. A speed higher than that would sort of be out of the norm for the city of Yelm as far as like your arterial roadway design standards. It would be an outlier in terms of its speed limit. And we did design these features through here. So I sort of highlighted what some of the physical geometric features are that are intentionally designed for 40 miles an hour or lower. And those are the intersections that we've talked about. So the 3 green dots are the roundabout locations. These diamonds are locations where we have vertical curves. And so that's like ups and downs in the road. So when you're going over a crest or you're going through a sag on a vertical curve, then you can only see so far in front of you, and how fast that change in profile is happening on the road is what's limiting your ability to see further down the road. And so you can stop in time. And so these vertical curves are designed for 40 miles an hour. And then these orange patches here are places where we have horizontal curvature that's designed for 40 miles an hour. And then the other thing I'll point out is I did mention earlier that this rapid rectangular flashing beacon that we have at Flume. So all the way through here, as people are driving this corridor, they're picking up on physical and visual cues that are encouraging them to drive 40 miles an hour. And then we post it for that speed. And yes, if we posted this for a higher speed, people may be able to get through here faster, but you'd have significantly more accidents, and they would be a lot more severe.
Tracy, you have a question?
Quite a few, actually. What you just described to us is you want to design a road here and decrease visibility to slow people down. And with what you've just described, I'm curious what you believe we should do on the interstate. Should we lower those speeds as well so that traffic slows down so it's safer? I mean, of course, people are going to be safer if they're driving slower, but I don't believe that's the purpose of what we're talking about here, is to slow people down. It's a bypass. I just think from where I'm standing and the folks I represent in this community, you are completely out of touch with what we're looking for. I mean, we're not looking for a scenic parkway drive. And that's what it sounds like you're describing your building. You say this road is going to be designed to be 40-mile-an-hour speed limit. Let me ask you this, phase 1, what was that design build speed? Do you know that?
I don't know it off the top of my head, but I would imagine that it would be the same speed.
It was not, sir. It was not. It was significantly more. We started out at 35 miles an hour and literally had to reach a point of our constituents and our citizens had to speed down phase 1 in order for them to raise the speed limit to 40 miles an hour. I don't think you guys are listening to what we are saying. I just think, I mean, and that's my input on this, but that's just unbelievable to me. You've just described to us that it's safer to drive slower. I mean,
Tracy, do you mind if I butt in and on behalf of the engineers here, I'll just tell you that what I'm picking up from their description isn't that they designed that road to make you drive slower. It's the geography and the right of way that they were able to get to make this road has some curves, both horizontal and vertical, that necessitate a slower speed. And that's why they would put they would recommend that particular speed limit for that stretch of the road. Not that they designed curves and bumps in it to try to slow you down. Am I closer to the?
I apologize, and that's what I thought he just described to us, is that they're designing this to create, basically to kill the view, so you can't see far enough ahead to drive a faster speed, which of course would be, the best way to eliminate a faster speed on a bypass is, put in obstacles to make it not feasible. And I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me. Why would we slow it down if we don't have to? I mean, I could see where if that were the case, yes.
Scott, which is it?
The reason to drive at a slower speed is because you have less accidents and less severe accidents. So if speed was the only goal, then yeah, we could set a speed limit of 65 miles an hour and not worry about it. But like when you're driving 65 miles an hour on an interstate, that we put in grade separated interchanges so that people can make entries and exits from that high speed at a high speed. We space those at like a mile spacing at least, so that we cut down on the number of friction points we have during those high speeds. And then the geometry of that road is designed to accommodate those high speeds. And so we've got intersections at like, quarter mile spacings or like eighth of a mile spacings. So it's not an interstate road, and it's not even a higher speed highway. It's an urban arterial, and you don't have urban arterials in Yelm that are being designed at 50 miles an hour. And so the context, so it's a bypass, but it's a bypass that's got several intersections that are interacting with neighborhoods and all kinds of other stuff around them. It's not like that you're going from point A to point B and you're not dealing with anything else. And so if we were traveling from here and then traveling down to here, and there was nothing in between, and all we had to do was carry cars from A to B, then a higher speed would be appropriate. But we have a shared use path along this entire corridor where we're encouraging bikes and peds to get out and use other things besides cars. And so they're in the same corridor with the cars. We've got intersections where bikes and peds are going to be crossing the roads. So the context is asking for a balance between high speeds that is just trying to get from A to B as fast as possible and safety.
And I don't disagree. I don't disagree with
driving slower is safer.
I don't disagree with you that driving slower is safer. That's kind of a thank you, Captain Obvious moment there. But what I do disagree with, and I can't understand why we're having this breakdown in communication, is you've got a highway that comes from Olympia clear out here that's got a hell of a lot more curves and ground contour than this small bypass we're talking about. That the speed limit's 45 and 50 miles an hour with some suggested slowdown speeds at some curves that are a little less safe. What we're talking about is a bypass. We're not talking. You said yourself. There's no driveways on this. There's no houses going to be popping out roads off of this. We have the existing roads, and that's it. So I understand that you want to be safe. That's great. We do too. That's absolutely paramount. We get that. But when once again, it seems from the way you're describing this, based off of your solution, that going slower is safer.
It is.
That you're creating a road that is created to be slower, and I just think that you're missing the target here. I don't think we're looking to go. If you want to go slow through Yelm, you don't take the bypass. Come right through town, because we certainly come real slow through town. This is the objective here, is to get folks who aren't coming to town home. They're trying to go home.
Councilmember DePino, do you have a weigh in here?
Thank you, Mayor. Scott, I hear what you're saying. I agree with you. I just want you to know that when someone says we, they don't necessarily represent everyone on the council or the whole town. Me personally, I get it. I'd rather explain to someone that why it's so slow than it is so fast, rather than having someone a mother come to me and say, hey, my child died because this is too fast. And they're coming out one of those exits that when a council member earlier was talking about how there's a lot of accidents on there on Killian, yeah. And I don't think it's because they're going too slow on that intersect or that part of the bypass. I think it's probably because they're going a little bit too fast. And I'm guilty of that too sometimes, going a little bit too fast and coming up on Killian, and maybe that's a problem. Maybe there should be some those speed bumps, that slow you down a little bit in certain areas. But I get it. And I think, most people would agree that we can try this out at the 40 miles per hour. And, it's a lot easier if it's horrible, we can raise it. We can raise that to 50 miles an hour, or 65 or 70 or 80 or whatever, people think it's fast enough here. I trust what you're saying, Scott. And I know sometimes the way that the people that you might speak to in your peers, DOT and your private firm, it's different necessarily than the people we're talking to on the streets here in Yelm. And there can be a disconnect, but I think what you're doing is right. And also that other portion of the bypass that was built, it was built a long time ago. It wasn't built in the last 5-10 years. So there's a lot of advances that, as you were mentioning, have occurred over this past decade. And I think you're trying to implement a lot of these. And I think it's going to work. I think that it's going to slow traffic down enough, but it's going to move traffic a heck of a lot faster than it has been going, because we haven't had that roundabout there by Walmart. We haven't had this bypass. It's all the way through from the entry of our town to the exit. So I think it's going to be a huge improvement. I'm looking forward to it. I know a lot of people that I represent sure are looking forward to it. And thank you.
Council, if you would indulge the agenda, we appreciate the fact that Scott and Bill have taken the time to come out and answer some more of our questions. If you still have concerns and would like them addressed, please write them out, give some good validation to them, get them over to Cody Colt, and Cody Colt can talk to the project manager and see if some of those considerations could be built into the final plan. But please do come in with some background information that would help substantiate your concern. And like the engineers have just said, both the left turn lane limitation and the speed limit are both things that can be changed based on actual usage patterns when this is developed out and built. So we'll look forward to the final project being tested. So Bill, Scott, thank you so much for attending tonight. This was really good. And we would appreciate, we just appreciate you zooming all the way out to Yelm tonight for this meeting. So if we could stop your screen share, I'd like to move on to Casey Mock, who's going to talk about another traffic issue that's been identified in Yelm and see what they've done about it.
I hope everyone's not tired of talking traffic. Can everyone hear me and see my PowerPoint?
Yes, we can. Good job.
Okay. So the purpose of this presentation is just to give a little background on what our public services team has been working on at the intersection of Coates Road, Crystal Springs, and Edwards. So we'll get started. This is a photo from Google Maps showing the intersection in question. You can see Yelm Middle School is on that southwest corner. This is obviously before the new middle school is constructed. And this intersection is a three-way intersection with a pretty acute angle between Coates and Crystal Springs. Currently, Crystal Springs, Edwards, and Coates are all collector streets. And Coates Road has a stop sign when you're turning left or right onto Edwards or Crystal Springs. There are also pedestrian crosswalks where I have these little red lines across Edwards and Coates. This intersection is used pretty frequently by pedestrians, especially with the new middle school here. The entrances to the new middle school are on Coates. And so this is a very frequent intersection that middle schoolers and their families use on the way and on the way home from school. So there are several issues to this intersection, primarily due to that acute angle that I talked about. In the last 5 years, we've had 11 crashes. 4 of them happened in the same year. They all had various scenarios, but in general, it was due to the lack of sight distance or excessive speed. So the way that this really limits sight distance is that I'm sure you all know from driving through here, when you're coming down Coates and you need to turn onto Crystal Springs or Edwards, especially if you're turning right, you really have to encroach into the crosswalk to be able to see traffic coming down Crystal Springs. We've had accidents where someone turning left can't see because the car turning right is so far out in the pedestrian crosswalk that they're blocking the traffic on Edwards. Basically, the visibility is a pretty big issue here, and also excessive speed. So though Coates is stop controlled right now, we don't have any kind of intersection control on Crystal Springs and Edwards. All of the streets in question have a speed limit of 25 miles per hour, but as I'm sure you all know, it's pretty frequent that people go faster than 25 through here, especially when you're taking a left turn up, going up Edwards, turning left onto Coates. With that wide angle turning left, it's pretty easy to cruise through there quickly, and we've seen several accidents on that front. So this brings us to the last slide of my very short PowerPoint, which is that our public services team would like to move forward with installing stop signs at Crystal Springs and Edwards Street to make this a 3-way intersection. This would do a couple different things. It would lower speeds and allow people to not have to encroach into that crosswalk to see the cars stopped at the other streets. So we would keep our pedestrian crosswalk safe, which is especially a concern with Yelm Middle School being right on that corner. That said, the 3-way stop is more of a short-term solution. We have this intersection in our 20-year transportation plan that is actually in Planning Commission right now. And once they're happy with the update, it will go to City Council for your comments and approval. But we're looking to do a more permanent solution, potentially a roundabout at that intersection further down the line. But at this point, it's not financially feasible to do that. And we are looking to install a 3-way stop. So I just wanted to let you know that that is on the radar and answer any questions you might have about this.
Good, Joe.
Thanks, Mayor. Good presentation, Casey. As someone who takes a left on that road every day, basically to get to my house on Crystal Springs, I feel you. This is exactly the issue that I face every single day as I take a left on there. I can't see. I have to encroach in the crosswalk. And even then, if cars coming up doing, like 30, 40 miles an hour, which sometimes they do, it's pretty hard to turn left. And I've had some close calls myself. And also, and when that happens, you're way out in the middle of the intersection at that point. So the people trying to turn left to go behind the middle school, it's difficult too. So ultimately, I think that I'd love to see a realignment of those streets. And I think on the long term, that's kind of what we've been discussing. But as a temporary solution and as a safety solution, I think this makes a lot of sense. So I'm happy to see it up there. Thank you.
Casey, when we put stop signs at Stevens and First, it became actually, although it was a expedient for people getting off of Yelm Avenue and moving on that side of the town, it became an accident magnet. And so when we put new stop signs at a busy intersection like this, could we also consider putting in the flashing stop signs like we have at First and Stevens that would be more visible to people and get them to pay attention?
Yes, that's definitely something that Cody and I and the entire public services team is concerned about. And we want to make sure that, obviously a stop sign pops up on a road you've driven for the last 10 years, you're not going to be expecting that. So we have a few things that we can put in place. We have signs that say new signal ahead. We can do those stop signs with the lights, the flashing lights like at Stevenson First. And the other thing is we could do some, I don't have the best knowledge of this, Cody can fill in, but we could do some modifications to the roads when it comes up to the intersection that it's not a speed bump or a speed hump, but it kind of, it's a little bit of a grade break in the road that would alert you that a signal's coming. So all of those are options. And that's another thing we would love to get feedback on. But yes, we will not just be putting stop signs out of nowhere with no lights or some kind of warning.
Thank you. Cody wants to weigh in on this, I believe.
I call them bumpy bumps. It's the little things you go before you hit like the roundabout and the Smalley, they have those little hits, the little bumps right before you hit it. They don't damage your car or anything, but they definitely, hey, something's coming up, I should wake up.
Bumpy bumps.
Yeah, and they have them on the shoulders sometimes so you don't drift too far. If you're, driving through an area that's dark and you get tired.
I think bumpy bumps.
Rumble strips.
Yeah,
Rumble strips.
Thank
there
you.
go, rumble strips, yeah.
I like bumpy bumps. Bumpy bumps. So Casey, what could a council member do if they wanted to add their opinion to this, or give you a thumbs up kind of thing?
So feedback is very welcome to myself or Cody, whichever route you go, we will get it. This does not require council approval, and that's why it's going to a study session. We could have put stop signs here without ever telling you, but we're working to increase transparency and make sure that council is involved in the decisions we make and that the public is involved in the decisions we make. But yes, feedback is welcome by email or at this meeting.
Very good. Thank you. That was a very good presentation, and I think it's going to go a long way to improve safety at that intersection, especially now with the new middle school in operation.
I do see Terry has a question.
Oh, thank you, Terry.
I just love this little hand thing now. I'm all into it. I like JW, what you said about the lights. Don't we usually have lights when it's a school crossing or something that designates students and be careful and slow down, school crossing, that kind of thing?
Yes, so we have special school crosswalks. Yelm Middle School has them down on Yelm Ave because that's where the entrance used to be. But I believe Cody, and Cody, you can confirm, is working on getting those at the intersection that crosses Edwards.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yes.
And the one on Collins too. So. Just for knowledge.
All right. Thank you, Casey and Cody, for that. Oh, I saw another hand. Go ahead, Holly.
There we go. I just have a question. So I come that way every single day and I make the right-hand turn off of Coates. So I'm always the one encroaching. But the last couple of days I've noticed that when I guess people are picking up their kids from the new school, they are blocked all the way back. So you have to go into the left lane. Joe knows what I'm talking about. I can tell by his reaction. Has that even been, I know this isn't a part of that, but are people aware of that?
That's a great question. Yes, we are aware of that.
Okay.
I know that Yelm PD has had Officer Moody out there trying to help with that situation. What we're seeing is that a lot of families don't want their kids riding the bus right now with COVID-19. And so we have significant higher volumes of parent drop off and pickup than is expected in a regular year. And so what we've done is we've talked with the middle school and we're going to get a right in, right out designation and maybe put some, again, with the engineering terms, put some left turn blockers on Coates so that people can't turn left. Again, that doesn't fix the situation of cars backing up on Coates, but it can at least prevent left turn conflicts.
You're gonna get some lefty blockers right in front of the bumpy bumps. Is that
Yes.
the idea? Okay.
Yes.
That'd be awesome. Very good. Thank you. We're going to move along. I'm just going to give you an overall view of the next item, which is the countywide home fund discussion. and we could talk about it again later. I understand the timeline. I was a little worried about at first, may have slowed down some. So bear with me here as I bring this to your attention, and forgive me if you already know a lot about this. I just want to make sure everybody understands what we're faced with here. So last year, House Bill 1590 was passed that gave cities and counties the opportunity to impose a tax on their communities by councilmanic action rather than by a vote of the people. And this would be for the funding of a home fund, the monies which would be used for housing issues. And there's a great variety of housing issues, but basically the idea was to try to create a fund that could be used to work on the housing problem. So the tax would be 0.1% sales tax increase. And again, you can do it either through voter approval, such as Olympia did in 2018 and created their own home fund, or you could do it by councilmanic action. The Regional Housing Council voted to recommend the action to the county after the authority was granted by the legislative action. And this was basically just the Regional Housing Council was a group of people from around the county said, hey, county commissioners, why don't you take a look at this to see if we could create another fund. The county commissioners are now discussing that possibility, and they say that they'll move forward with this if they have majority support from the municipalities in Thurston County. Again, Olympia has their own home fund. This would affect Lacey, Tumwater, and all of the other cities and unincorporated Thurston County. The county estimates that it would raise between $4.5 and $5 million per year, which sounds great, but they don't have a plan on how they would spend it, which is worrisome to one of the county commissioners in particular. So here's the other option. The cities themselves can also impose this tax by councilmanic action or by vote of the people. And if we did that, for example, we would not be sending the money from our taxpayers to the county fund. We would create our own home fund here in the city of Yelm, and we would use the money as we saw fit. The negative side to that, of course, is that really based on our tax revenue right now, we would raise about $13,000 to $20,000 annually. Which isn't going to build a whole lot of houses. And it also creates another fund that we would have to manage and figure out how we would want to use it. Again, Olympia has its own home fund that they did, and they generate about $2.3 million a year through theirs, which demonstrates their greater tax revenue. So right now, Commissioners Mejia and Menser are looking for support from the cities. Commissioner Edwards would like to put this out to a county-wide vote, regardless of the legislative action, which lets them do it by councilmanic action. And additionally, Olympia, Lacey, and Tumwater all have housing action plans already, which call for low-income housing funding. So they may be more interested in joining in with the county on this. I know that Tenino has just recently talked about this, and they are drafting up language that would put out to their voters the question, would you like to create our own home fund? So I bring this to your attention tonight. I know there's a lot more to talk about on it, but in a general consensus way, I'd like to hear your thoughts on how you feel about this. And I'll just tell you that the county may do this whether we do our own thing or not. So, Joe?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd be against it personally. I'd urge the council caution on supporting a new tax, especially if there's not a plan already in place for the county, especially since there's not a plan in place currently here in the city of Yelm. Having these discussions are good, but I'm not a fan of councilmanic action for taxes and increasing them. I'm a fan more of putting them to a vote of the people. And this, I mean, I know what the legislature did, and it's good for cities that want to impose these taxes. Gives them a little more a little more different tools to do it without a vote of the people. It's easier to raise taxes, but I would urge the council not to, but it's my 2 cents.
Anybody else want to weigh in on this? And there's actually 2 questions. One, would this council have any kind of appetite for considering jumping ahead of the county commission and putting on their own home fund tax, thinking that the county is going to go ahead and do it? And the second question is, what kind of support would you like to give or not give to the county commissioners for imposing such a tax by councilmanic action? Should they just go ahead and do that, or should, like Commissioner Edwards, would you rather see it go back to a vote of the people?
I would rather see it go back to a vote of the people.
EJ saying she'd like to see it go to a vote. I see Holly nodding in his head, as does Joe and Terry.
Yeah.
I can't see Tracy or James anymore. There's Tracy. Tracy's like vote of the people.
James has his hand up.
Oh, and I'll have to minimize this screen. Hold on a second so I can see that. Go ahead, James.
Couple things. One, I think we're taxed enough, so I would be a hard no. 2, I don't think the county should do it either. And the simple fact of the matter is, places like Seattle, San Francisco, LA, New York, Olympia, they've already shown that our government does nothing but make the problem worse. The endless millions of dollars that have been taken in taxes and blown on this homelessness problem have done nearly nothing to reverse it. So our city or our county talking about implementing more of the same policies is a terrible idea.
All right, thank you for that. I'll have an opportunity to discuss this more with the county commissioners, and I want to make sure that I had your opinion that I can forward on to them. And judging from the consensus of opinion here, I can word that very strongly, that we out here representing our constituency would rather see this go to a vote of the people rather than just have the council, the county commissioners enact that. Okay, I will do so. All right, and I won't take any more of your time as far as a mayor's report, other than I'll just tell you that irrespective of the issues that we are challenged with these days, as you are aware, the work of the city is going on very well, and we appreciate everybody's participation in that. So I'll start now with council member initiatives, and remember too that when we're done with our initiatives, we do have a closed session. What we'll do there is we'll actually adjourn this meeting and then go into a closed session, which is allowed by RTW for the discussion of negotiations with one of our bargaining units. So Councilmember Blair.
No initiatives.
Okay, Councilmember Curry.
No initiatives.
Councilmember Smith.
Dang it, nothing.
It must be the weather.
It's the unmute button.
Councilmember Wood.
Lots of initiative, none I'd like to share.
Councilmember DePino.
No initiatives, go Hawks.
And Councilmember Kaminsky.
I had a tiny question, but I could just pass and go on to the next time.
Well, since everybody else sort of deferred to you, what's your question?
I happen to be not inside, but at Bob's Tavern today. I think it's Bob's Tavern. I did not go inside. I was talking to the owners outside on the sidewalk. Just want to make that clear. But they were telling me, and I believe the mayor and Joe DePinto know about this issue, but they were complaining about the tree that is encroaching on their roof and they want to fix it and they can't cut it down and what should they do, blah, blah, blah. So I just thought I'd ask, is it true we can't trim that tree so their roof doesn't fall apart?
Yeah, that tree's been there a lot longer than Bob's Tavern is, but maybe not by much. But Cody's going to talk about how we deal with street trees in that part of our town particularly.
Yeah, so there's two things. One is the tree is not protected in terms of like, it's not a tree that is protected under state laws or rules. It has been there for a long time. And so removal of it would be near impossible without causing damage to the surrounding area. But there is some trimming we can do, and we're looking at that kind of trimming. Trimming normally happens in the next month or so, right before winter freezes hit, or in early spring, right after the winter freezes. So we are looking at that tree specifically because we've had reports about it.
So if I happen to see them again, outside, of course, I could tell them that you're okay with trimming the tree, right, Cody?
Yeah, you can sign a treaty if you want, so.
Oh, okay, thank you. That's perfect.
Hey, Terry, you want to meet me over at Bob's?
Excellent idea.
Yeah, I would recommend that you go in next time, Terry. It's a nice little bar.
Oh, okay, I'll check it out. Thanks, guys.
So at this point, folks, I would like a motion to adjourn. And then again, once we do that, you'll need to exit this meeting.
We can't have a motion to adjourn.
Oh, yeah, it's a study session. Yeah, we'll just adjourn. But then when we're out of this meeting, you received a separate link from Kathy earlier today. And Tracy, have you fixed that issue with your computer yet?
Yeah, I got it. Well, I got it. I can get into my email now. It's just I'm having trouble going in through the city website, but I can go directly in.
All right.
So, all right.
If you have that issue, text me again and I'll send you the link to your other email.
Yep.
Otherwise, everybody okay with adjourning?
We don't have to come back, right? No.
We're done with this. Thank you, citizens, for attending tonight, and we'll see you next time.